Hey everyone, what's up and welcome back to 31 Nights of Horror. Today's video is extra special because it's part of Movie Nerds Club, and if you guys don't know what Movie Nerds Club is, it's basically this awesome group of content creators here on YouTube that get together once every single month to discuss a similar topic, and we usually do top 5 lists, and this time it's recommending scary movies that anyone can watch. And my favorite thing in the entire world is recommending horror movies, and the best thing about this Movie Nerds Club video is that you guys can have so many recommendations because I'm going to give you 5, but other members are also going to give their top 5 list. So I'm going to link everybody's video down below. Make sure after this video ends, you go and check out their videos. You don't want to miss their recommendations so that you guys can build your October watch list. And I'm super excited to get into mine. And I went ahead and asked on Instagram, what's stopping you from wanting to watch horror movies? And I got a lot of really awesome answers, and that this kind of helped fuel my list that I have here. And some people said don't enjoy being scared. Other people say don't really like the feeling of watching them. But I did also get some responses. This person said they don't scare me, which I think is really interesting because I never realized that some people want to get scared and they just haven't really found the right ones, or maybe horror movies that they watch just don't scare them, so they kind of think they're almost pointless. And this person said the amount of terrible ones out there definitely make me disinterested, which is a pretty valid point. There are a lot of bad horror movies out there, but even though this is a really long intro, I just wanted to kind of let you guys know what was guiding this list that I came up with. I have 5 movies here, but throughout my entire 31 Nights of Horror, I'm sure you guys will find some movie that you will enjoy, and some movies that I do talk about today I reviewed in last year's 31 Nights of Horror, so you guys can hear more of my in-depth thoughts on those. But I'm super excited to get into this list. Here are my top 5 scary movies that anyone can watch. I'm starting off the list with The Silence of the Lambs. Jodie Foster stars as Clarice Starling, a top student at the FBI training academy. Jack Crawford wants Clarice to interview Dr. Hannibal Lecter, a brilliant psychiatrist who is also a violent psychopath, serving life behind bars for various acts of murder and cannibalism. Crawford believes that Lecter may have insight into a case, and that Starling, as an attractive young woman, may be just the bait to draw him out. This movie, in my opinion, is perfect for people that say that horror movies don't scare them, but it also might be perfect for people that say that horror movies do scare them. And you guys are probably wondering, how does that make any sense? I think this movie is the perfect mix of scary but not scary, because I consider it more to be like a crime thriller, but it does have horrifying elements to it. And I think people that say that they've seen a lot of bad horror movies and they don't want to really watch more of them, I think if you see The Silence of the Lambs, you're gonna instantly want to watch more horror movies, especially psychological horror. This type of horror is just really interesting to me because it kind of is something that in the moment it might not scare you, but you're gonna be thinking about it for a very long time. I'd like to say that it's more creepy than anything else, and what I mean by creepy is that there's like an ambiance to it, and just the characters themselves, there's something weird about them. But I wouldn't personally consider this to be a super scary movie, but I think it is still good enough to get under your skin a little bit. I don't know, this is just like a perfect mix for that. And I personally don't really get scared by horror movies, but if I ever want to have kind of like a little bit of chill in my body when I watch a horror movie, I will put on The Silence of the Lambs. And other elements that might want to turn you on to watching horror movies, especially for people that say that they've seen a lot of bad ones and they're uninterested, this movie is one of the few horror movies to have been nominated at the Oscars, but to also win the top 5 awards at the Academy Awards, which are Best Actor, Best Actress, Best Screenplay, Best Director, and Best Picture. That's right, it won all of those. That's just an added little fun fact bonus to get you to watch this movie. What I really like about this movie is that it's a crime thriller. It's a crime thriller horror movie, but it's told in a very interesting way, and if you've never seen it, it's just like, at least for me, the first time I saw it, I never expected what the movie did at all. And there's a lot of play on perspective here that's just really interesting. I think this is one of those horror movies that you just will never stop talking about them, and those are some of my favorite movies of all time, so that's why I'm starting my top 5 list today with The Silence of the Lambs. And now we're gonna get into some scary movies that you actually can watch with your family. So the second movie I'm recommending today is Beetlejuice. After Barbara and Adam Mayfield die in a car accident, they find themselves stuck haunting their country residence, unable to leave the house. When the unbearable Deetsies and teen daughter Lydia buy the home, the Maitlands attempt to scare them away without success. Their efforts attract Beetlejuice, a rambunctious spirit whose help quickly becomes dangerous for the Maitlands and innocent Lydia. This is one of my comfort Halloween movies. I actually am going to be reviewing it later on in this series, and I'm super excited to just completely talk to you guys about it because there's just so much to say. A little snippet in a video is not enough. I think if you like movies like Casper, this is a Tim Burton film, and if you like that kind of quirky style that this movie has, I think you're really gonna enjoy this movie. And it's great to watch with the family because one of the best qualities of it is that that it perfectly balances kind of being scary but also being really funny, especially Beetlejuice. I think he's such a funny character. Michael Keaton does an incredible job playing Beetlejuice, and I also really like Lydia. I think Winona Ryder, this kind of dry humor aesthetic to her, if that makes any sense, that I just really enjoy. But this movie, it just has such beautiful sets. I love watching this movie to kind of see all the cool props, all the cool things that are in the background, because there's so much to digest in this one movie. Like I was saying, with balancing scary and funny, it's the consistent mood throughout that makes this movie so likable. And I've always liked how it kind of turns the table, because we're, instead of us seeing the family's perspective of them being haunted, we're kind of seeing both of them, if that makes sense, but mostly we're seeing the ghost perspective and the things that go through their mind and why they want to haunt this family. It's super interesting. It's a concept that I don't think is explored enough, and the fact that in this movie we have these two people who have just died and they just really want their house, so they're just trying to get these people away. It's so interesting because it just makes me think of like ghosts in every single movie, and maybe that's what they wanted to. Maybe they just want to chill in their house, but people are coming in. So it's just a really fun concept. It talks about dark topics in a way that just feels family oriented and like really okay to see with the family. I've enjoyed this movie since I was super young. I feel like I was 8 when I first saw this movie, and I was just enjoying it. I didn't get a lot of the things that they were talking about until I was older, but like I think anybody can enjoy this movie, and as a family it's just so much fun to watch. I love watching this movie around Halloween, so if you haven't seen Beetlejuice, now is the time to do so. Now my third recommendation today is literally one that you guys recommended to me last year when I did 31 Nights of Horror, and I didn't think I would love it as much as I did, but it is now one of my favorite movies of all time, and that is Fright Night. Teenage Charlie Brewster is a horror film junkie, so it's no surprise that when a reclusive new neighbor named Jerry Dandriff moves next door, Brewster becomes convinced he is a vampire. It's also no surprise when nobody believes him. However, after strange events begin to occur, Charlie has no choice but to turn to the only person who could possibly help: washed-up television vampire killer Peter Vincent. This is one of the most perfect vampire movies ever, and if you aren't really into super scary movies but you just like the vibe of a Halloween movie, I think this one is also perfect for that. It's just really creative when it comes to vampires, and I know you might be thinking vampires have been done over and over again, and by this point you're probably over vampires. But no, this movie is really creative. There's one thing that the movie does that is just so much fun. Like, I've never seen that in another vampire movie, and it's just very interesting, the rules that it sets up, and there's so much awesome 80s music in this movie that I just really enjoy. I do have a full review of this movie that I did last year, so if you guys want to hear my really in-depth thoughts about it, you definitely can go check that out. I had so much fun talking about that movie, so yeah, check out that video. But something else that I think is really fun about this movie is that the main character feels like almost relatable in a sense, because like I said, he's a horror film junkie, and I love watching movies when the main character is a horror film junkie. That's why one of my favorite characters of all time is Randy from Scream, because like, even if you don't fully relate to them in some way, shape, or form, you're like, no, because I would totally do that, because I too am a horror fan. Vampire is like actually creepy, and you're actually kind of scared for these characters, and there's also so much cool practical effects in this movie, like transformations, gore, but it's not too much where you don't really want to look at it. I think it's done in a really nice way, and the story is just so investing and so captivating, and I think they do a really good job at just making you want to root for these characters, which I think is not the case for a lot of horror movies, and that might turn off a lot of people, but I think in this case you want to root for them. And something else that I think is super fun about this movie is that the main character, people don't believe him a lot of times, but you know just as much information as the main character, so you're kind of always on his side. You always know he's telling the truth, and it just makes for a super interesting watch that I highly recommend. There's also a remake, and I have not seen the remake, so I can't like, you know, vouch for it, but a lot of people, especially my friends, tell me it's a good remake, so if you like this one, you might like the remake as well, but like I said, I have not seen it yet. The next recommendation that I have for you guys is another movie that I reviewed, so you guys can go check that out: Coraline. While exploring her new home, a girl named Coraline discovers a secret door, behind which lies an alternate world that closely mirrors her own, but in many ways is better. She rejoices in her discovery until the other mother and the rest of her parallel family try to keep her there forever. Coraline must use all her resources and bravery to make it back to her family and life. If you love animation, you're gonna love this movie, and even if you don't love animation, just watch it. It's a very good movie. Coraline is probably the creepiest animated movie I've ever seen. I think it's just because from the beginning, the way it starts, there's something so eerie about it. And you don't even know what's gonna go down. And then when things do start happening, it's so creepy. It reminds me of just classic horror stories, and I remember I used to read a lot of horror books when I was little, the like be careful what you wish for type situation. So if you know what I'm talking about, you're probably gonna enjoy this. And this movie just has such eerie music as well. I love the music in Coraline because it adds so much to the atmosphere. It took me forever to see this movie. I never saw it when I was a kid because I was terrified, but a lot of my friends saw it when they were younger and have loved it their whole life. So it's definitely one that, like, it doesn't just have to be for one age range, it could be for a ton of them. One of the best things about Coraline is the characters in this movie and the character motivations. I think it's something that's often overlooked in a lot of horror movies, to just show what these characters want, and there's definitely so much character growth and so much character work around Coraline that she's one of the best characters I think is written, especially in a movie, especially in an animated movie. And I just really like the way they use her wishes against her in this movie. It's such a good movie. Like, I'm like running out of things to say because there's just because I just don't want to spoil it, because people that haven't seen it, it's so surprising and cool. There's so many elements into it that are just like, what? And one of the coolest things about it too is that the ending could also be seen as ambiguous. There's a ton of theories, and I love watching scary movies and like finding out what people think about different endings and stuff. This one is definitely a good one if you want that atmosphere, but also incredible storytelling. Now the last recommendation today is Misery. After a serious car crash, novelist Paul Sheldon is rescued by a former nurse, Annie Wilkes, who claims to be his biggest fan. Annie brings him to her remote cabin to recover, where her obsession takes a dark turn when she discovers Sheldon is killing off her favorite character from his novels. As Sheldon devises plans to escape, Annie grows increasingly controlling, even violent, as she forces the author to shape her writing to suit her twisted fantasies. That synopsis sounds crazy, right? The movie's even crazier. This movie is so much fun, and I recently just read the book, so I also recommend the book. If you like any Stephen King movie, you're definitely gonna enjoy this. I think Stephen King, it just is really awesome at crafting these horror scenarios, and I think the directors and usually the filmmakers that go alongside, at least the ones that I've seen, have done a great job bringing his stories to life. This is Kathy Bates' best performance. I love Kathy Bates, love her in a ton of stuff, but here she just shines. She is so good. For the most part, this movie is a one location film. They do change locations and go other places, but for the most part, you're just in this cabin, in this isolated cabin, and I love isolated cabins in movies, or just like isolated places in horror films. It just, I think, is able to just make the writer be super creative and the filmmakers, and they definitely were in this movie. There were always stakes set up for the character, even when you thought there weren't. And there are so many scenes in this movie where you kind of go, damn it, because you just want this character to succeed, this writer to succeed. And Annie, she's just so good. I think she's one of the best horror villains, honestly. And I think anybody can watch this movie because it's like, it definitely has thrilling moments. It has moments where you're in suspense because you just like want him to succeed. They do a really good job in that too. But I also think it's just like not as scary. I don't think it's scary to like, you know, cause you not to go to sleep or anything. Misery is just a great movie. Like, I feel like I'm repeating myself and I sound so redundant, and I don't think I'm giving good enough points to sell you guys on watching Misery, but great characters, great acting, great directing, incredible directing if I will be honest, and just an awesome ride. Like, there are so many things that happen in this movie that I did not expect, and it's just as twisted as it's gonna sound. It gets crazier and crazier as the movie goes on, and you just never know what to expect. You never know what Annie's gonna bring up. You guys definitely need to go check out Misery right now. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed my recommendations, and definitely if you guys have any recommendations down below, please comment them, because we want people to watch a lot of horror movies. I hope you guys have an awesome night or day whenever you guys are watching this, and I'll be seeing you guys in the next one. Bye everyone!